We're going to try to condense our comments. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Call for a brief presentation. But I just want to emphasize to everybody, our bill is about removing an unfunded mandate. It's not about the pros and cons and the benefits and risk of taking and utilizing fluoride. But we've had a lot of questions in the past in that neighborhood. So I've asked Dr. Call to kind of give us a real brief explanation of the risk and benefits of fluoride, and then we'll go into questions and we'll tell you the changes in our bill. So, Dr. Call.
Thank you. So these slides, I've got a few slides, act as a resource to give some background and references relative to those concerns that are brought up of what happens if we do remove fluoride from the water. This graph shows a comparison between countries who have fluoridated their water over the years in red, the red lines, and the bluish lines are the countries non-fluoridated. You see a general trend over the decades of declined rates. And we've come to understand in dentistry that the benefit of fluoride as far as reduction of tooth decay is from a topical standpoint. What you find in toothpaste, for example, or what an individual can receive in a dental office in which fluoride is applied to the teeth. So this just drives home the point that the benefits to water fluoridation at a systemic level are dubious, questionable. I mean, look at the facts right here on the slide. The other thing I want to point out, about a year ago, the National Toxicology Program published a report it took about 8 years to put all this data together. This is like at the highest level of government. These are researchers and PhD scientists who looked at all the literature being published over the years. And we're not talking about one or two studies. We're talking 64 studies identified, 18 of which were very high quality. These are studies funded by the National Institutes of Health grants. And conclusions that there is a moderate confidence in the body of evidence that estimated fluoride exposure is inversely associated with IQ in children. So the more fluoride exposure means drop in IQ. Now, you might question, moderate confidence. We want high confidence. It's seldom in science that you get that. There are so many confounding variables in statistical analysis. It's very difficult to get to that point. Some of the studies, this is one that was published in JAMA, which is a very respected peer-reviewed journal of the Journal of the American Medical Association. And these researchers are at a number of various institutions, some in Canada and in the United States, these are the type of studies that the NTP report highlighted. The big take-home message here is that fluoride is a developmental neurotoxin. And the most susceptible individuals in our population are fetus and newborn. And as a neurotoxin, that fluoride will interfere with brain development. It does a lot of other nasty things too, but that's the big focus here. And so we need to keep that in mind. I always talk about we dentists can repair teeth. We can't repair brains. Nobody can do that. Additionally, a year ago, the federal court ruled. The court finds that fluoridation of water at 0.7 parts per million, which is the level presently considered optimal in the United States, poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children. The scientific literature in the record during these court proceedings provides a high level of certainty that a hazard is present. Fluoride is associated with reduced IQ. Some of you perhaps heard of Cochrane reviews. This is data from Cochrane Review published, again, about a year ago. A lot was happening a year ago, showing that over the decades, this kind of looks like that first slide I showed you, the graph, but it showed the decline in effectiveness of water fluoridation. And again, the understanding now is that during the the 70s, particularly, the use of fluoridated toothpaste came on very strong. And it's that topical benefit that has resulted in this reduce in decay. Which leads me to, what do we do with conflicting data and concerns? And I propose this precautionary principle. It's used a lot more in Europe than it is in the United States. This is out of a Journal of Evidence-Based Dental Practice in 2006, so one of our own dental journals, that just based at that point in time, pointed out some of these issues that make fluoridation ripe for applying a precautionary principle approach. And now we have all those things that I just mentioned to you added on to the data points 20 years ago. So that principle of precautionary principle is important. And another aspect of that is the concept of margin of safety. And what scientists do when they're trying to determine what are levels that maybe people can tolerate safely of something that could be toxic, then they typically apply a factor of 10. And in that NTP report, a lot of the data was focusing that for sure at 1.5 parts per million of fluoride exposure, that there is definitely problems. And even though there's problems at lesser amounts, as you go up, that 1.5 was like major confidence of a problem. Well, if you apply that margin of safety factor, that would then leave us with the maximum exposure at 0.15 parts per million, which is a whole lot less than our current 0.7 parts per million. This is the result of too much fluoride in the water. It's called dental fluorosis. It's showing us what happens internally from that internal ingestion of fluoride, and that's just the teeth. You don't have a comparable image of the brain that we could show or the bones, but there is an effect systemically from that fluoride. And I'll close with this graph here. A lot of my colleagues will point out a study published about what happened in Calgary. They took the fluoride out of the water back in 2011-12. You see that vertical dotted line, fluoridation seized in Calgary. And they'll say, yeah, after that was done, the rate of decay went up. Well, what they omit to tell you is that the rate of decay was already going up during fluoridation, as you can see on the graph with that lower green line, 2006. And that was a published study right here. So that concludes my remarks. And at any point when we get into questions, I'll be glad to help with that. But
we will
Cindy,
go through the entire presentation before
Okay.
we take questions.
Yep.
So Representative Hart, go proceed.
Okay, with that little lesson on the risk and benefits of fluoride, now let's get into the legislation. The legislation is the same legislation that's been that passed out of the House last year, with one exception. The legislation simply undoes the unfunded mandate in the state of Kentucky that requires water producers to add fluoride to the water. But we added, we did tweak the legislation a little bit. By talking over the years, and more specifically over the last several months with multiple water districts, one of the biggest concerns that we heard was they were worried about possible litigation. Didn't matter whether they kept fluoride in the water or took fluoride out of the water. They are afraid they were going to be sued with whatever decision they made. So because we're asking these water districts to undo an unfunded mandate, we have decided in the new bill, and you all should have drafts of it, simply adds an immunity clause in it. The water districts will be immune from any type of civil litigation, regardless of which direction they go, whether they keep fluoride in the water or take it out. That's the only change to the legislation. And we, as we go through the discussion and as we prepare to go into next session, if we're open to suggestions to make the bill as friendly and better, if that's the words you choose, so that we want to accommodate everybody's concerns, but we want everybody to realize our emphasis is undoing the unfunded mandate and allowing people to have the freedom of choice when it comes to, in this case, dental treatment. We're not promoting fluoride one way or the other, good or bad. We're trying to steer away from that conversation because that's not what the legislation does. However, because of the ramifications and some of the stuff in the media and stuff today, we thought it was necessary to give you a little bit of education on the risk and benefits of fluoride.